Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight to hear us and learn a little bit about our studio. So Howard kind of nailed it about my dad. He was a tough guy, and he worked very, very hard from starting from nothing. I'll talk about that a little bit, and grew a business from 0 to 100, and over probably a full 25, 30 years in business. And then I came into the business. Unfortunately, I was kind of forced into what I was my job. I'll explain that in a minute. And then my son Brian is now in the business. So it's 3 generations. We've been around 75 years. My father came from Germany in 1939, and he was in a concentration camp in Germany and was able to get out. There was a little window to be able to get out and leave the country if you had a ticket on a ship, and he managed to get that ticket, got out, and went to Cuba, and on his way to the United States. And he was supposed to be in Cuba just for 1 or 2 weeks. It turned out he had to stay there for almost 2 years to get all the paperwork organized, and during that time, he really came there with not a lot, and one of the things he had was his Leica camera, Leica M3 camera. He used that camera to take photographs of families on the beaches in Cuba, other immigrant families. And what he would do is go home to an apartment he had there and develop the photographs at night in his bathtub. And in the morning, he'd bring those pictures back to the beach, to those same immigrants, and they purchased them, and they were very, very happy with the quality and the way he did things. And he was self-taught. He never took lessons. His family in Germany was in actually sportswear manufacturers. But what he did was smart, I think. He followed those customers. Most of them came to New York, and he followed them to New York and opened up a small business, basically where we are today on West 72nd Street here in Manhattan. And we've kind of been in the same location for over 70 years now. It's almost 75 years. So what's been good is that our business has grown slowly but surely. My dad used to come home at night, and I used to have my bedroom when I was a kid was like right next to our dining room, and he would sit at the dining room table calling customers, and I would hear what he was saying, and I would kind of absorb it all. And I think that helped me a lot going into the business. I was his assistant, as Howard was, probably almost the same time. And I worked with him from the age of 13, and I continued doing that till probably I was 17 as a lighting assistant. And I started in the days when we were shooting with speed graphic cameras, 4x5 film, big wedding. You shot a really big wedding, you might shoot 80 or 100 images at the wedding. Today photographers shoot 100 images of the bride's shoes. So it's like a whole, it's a different world today. But every photograph counted, and I still, when I go out to photograph, I try to not just push the button. I want to make sure I'm getting really, really great shots, great expressions, and that has helped us along. When I was about 17, I started photographing, and I went to college here in New York City. So on the weekends, I would help my dad photographing big weddings, and I would learn from other photographers that worked for us. So I've always felt that my education, I never went to school for photography, but I kind of was on the job education, which has been my kind of way of teaching other photographers coming into us to see the work, and learn. It's by going out with good photographers, seeing how they work, and learning how they pose, somebody you admire. That's a really good way to learn this business. We worked together for every weekend. It wasn't a great social life for me, but that's what I did. I shot weddings and parties and bar mitzvahs, and this is what we did every weekend. When I was 26, we did a wedding in Mexico City, very, very big wedding. It was probably 300 or 400 people. We flew down. It was myself, one of our other photographers, who I'm actually still friendly with, who's now living in Washington. And I flew down to Mexico to photograph the wedding. My dad was there, and at the end of the wedding, he went out to get a taxi. And to make a long story short, there was a really horrible accident, and he was injured very, very badly. So badly that the doctor said, "Don't call your mother because this could be fatal." But he came through, and with help of friends and such. But he was injured, his legs were injured, and he was at that time 65 years old. And I was kind of thrown into this without really knowing everything about the business, other than, kind of feeling my way. So I built up, I went to work in kind of a daze the first time I got back, and I had to do everything on my own. And little by little, I made it happen, and we sort of grew the business, little steps, but people heard about us. The quality of the work was essential, that it was perfect, everything. I'm really a perfectionist. When I go, even still today, I'm crazy when a lab sends me photographs that aren't great, or I get images that just aren't up to par. What I would call up to par might be good for a lot of photographers, but they're not up to my standards. I will either talk to the photographer or call a lab, say, hey, the color isn't really great. Even for our proofing, I will, if it's not good, I would send it back. So my vendors, when I always knew that, if they heard from me, usually it wasn't good. If it's good, I don't say anything. They do their job, everything's fine. But when, the most important thing is that we continued our quality, to keep the level of quality to a certain level. We started to do some celebrity weddings, and I can give you a little idea of some of the people that we've done, but that really brought us to a different level. And I think once we started doing the celebrity weddings, that people would come in, and my first, I think, big wedding that we ever did was for the owner of MGM Studios. His name was Marvin Davis, and he was a big oil tycoon. And he came in to the studio as a big guy, and he owned ABC TV as well. ABC, and we sat down at a table, and he has his bodyguard with him, and the guy, was carrying this briefcase, and we were kidding around. He walked out for a minute, and we were kidding around with the bodyguard. I said, "What's in that briefcase?" He opens it up like a machine gun was in there. I was like, "Great." So anyway, what we did was that was a wedding that was kind of broke us into another level, where people, a lot of famous people, a lot of wealthy people saw the work we did. They liked what we did, and he became a very good customer for many, many, many years. I photographed his kids and such. This was a shot of Brian when he first started. Just in the middle of a wedding, kind of just taking a minute to go through things. It's when I had, dark hair. It was nice. Give you a little idea of some of the stuff here. This is a page from my father's ledger. It's interesting for anybody here who's into cameras. About halfway down, you can see his Leica cameras and what he was paying for it. The lenses, $100 for a Leica lens. It's great. And I have to go back and get those prices today. But this was his ledger, keeping track of every penny that came into the business and what he spent, which is, very important to keep your business. And this is on a steady keel. Our studio is on West 72nd Street. We give you a little quick tour. This is when you come in the studio. We try to do everything in a very elegant way because our pricing is kind of on the high side. We kind of go from expensive to ridiculous in pricing. And we're kind of proud of that. So here's what we do. You walk in, has a stainless steel nameplate there, very nice. People come in, they already see that it's expensive. We use beautiful woods, beautiful carpeting. Kind of needs a redo now, but we're in the midst. And we spent a lot of money on this. And the reason was I wanted to have it. It should be like you're walking into a fine jewelry store, or just, you want people to have a really good experience. So if they walk in to a studio that's sloppy, or, stuff lying around, it doesn't look like a place where you really want to spend money. If you go to Tiffany's, you go to a beautiful jewelry store, you walk in, everything's like, neat and clean and looks high end, and you feel you're going to spend money there. So this is our This is our little waiting area. We have a couch. We have flowers that we have one of our florists vendors that we work with. We kind of trade photos for flowers every week. He comes in and gives us fresh flowers, which also gives a very high-end look to this. A way you can work sometimes with your vendors to work together to be beneficial for both of you. Provide some photographs of events you've done, exchange it for flowers. Just to give you an idea, this is one of our sales rooms, and again, high-end, it's private. We have our albums. We use Leather Craftsman as our bookbinder, which is all our albums up there, and they do an amazing job, and we've been using them for over 60 years. They're terrific. This is my dad photographing. This was actually at the Hampshire House, which is still around. It used to be a hotel, but it's now, I guess, residences, and that's on like 59th Street. But we used to go out to to Saks Fifth Avenue or Bergdorf Goodman to their wedding salons and actually set up hot lights and photograph with a 5x7 or a 4x5 camera. Brides, but in there, for the New York Times and such. So that was him working many, many years ago. And this is the kind of stuff that was shot in those days. The brides had these big dresses. You wanted to show it. So that's a portrait he took of yours truly when I was probably 5 or 6. And his lighting was amazing. He I don't know where he actually learned it from, but he just knew lighting, and he was amazing with children and families, but mostly with kids. He just got the best expressions out of them. I used to have, I just listened to the things he said. I still use some of his lines. I remember one child was sitting in front of him, and he was about 5 years old, and the kid was like completely crazy, and he's fidgety and jumping around. And he asked the boy, do you have a hobby? He says, yeah, I collect marbles. And then he looked at him, he says, do you have them all? So it was like, it was just nuts. This was one of my first things that I did I'll tell you exactly what it was, 1967. During the Six-Day War in Israel, Golda Meir came to the United States and spoke at Madison Square Garden. And my dad was fortunate enough to know her, I guess it was like her agent at that time, and like a William Morris kind of thing. And we were invited to go to Madison Square Garden, and I went with him to photograph this event. And I got this photograph. It was shot on Tri-X, and we were fairly close. It was done with probably 180 millimeter lens maybe. And we sent the photograph to her. I was trying to get an autograph. And what happened is we got back a letter that from the personal assistant to the prime minister asking, actually, part of this was they were asking for 100 copies of the photograph. And my father said, what do you charge the prime minister of Israel for photographs? And we sent them over, and she used it as her official photograph for several years, which was really a big honor. So some of the people we photographed, the late governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, we've done his many parties for his family, specifically his daughter's wedding, and we just did his granddaughter's wedding, as a matter of fact, about a year ago. This is Ronald Lauder from Estee Lauder. We've done a bunch of portraits and a couple of events for him. Harry Macklow, who's the builder of that big tower that's on 432 Park Avenue that you see all over New York, that little skinny building that's going up. So he's a great customer. We've done many, many parties for him. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to photograph his son's kids here this weekend, and they just switched it to August. But we do a lot of work for this family, and they've been very loyal customers. This is a great man, Elie Wiesel. Again, people like what we do, and the lighting and the way we handle ourselves, very important when you go out. Our maybe next president, who knows, we've done a ton of stuff. My father started a relationship with Fred Trump, which is Donald's father, ages ago, and we've done I can't even tell you, dozens and dozens and dozens of events for him. Photographed one of his weddings. I photographed, Brian and I photographed his daughter's wedding. So there's Ivanka. And the photographs were used really all over the world. I think it was like 100 and something magazine covers all over the world. And it was, really nice. That's Fred Trump with his daughter. That's Donald's sister, Elizabeth. We did their wedding. It was at the Plaza Hotel. It's Donald with her many years ago. So all the family, I just put a few in here to show. That's actually Donald Jr., who's always on the set, with his father, and Ivana Trump. This is who's in the news also now, Sumner Redstone, and his daughter, his granddaughter, and we photographed her wedding up in Boston. So we seem to have this nice little vibe going with people, and they, people like our work and they talk, and it becomes a thing where people seek us out, and we've gone all over the world with this. I photographed weddings in Tokyo. Brian's been, God knows where. Just in the last 3 months, he's been all over the place, photographing weddings. He was last week in California. We did a few weeks before that. We both did a wedding in Palm Springs in California. So people are flying us all over to get the quality of what we do. This is my new photo assistant. And actually, Paris Hilton was at an event we were photographing, and I asked her if we could take a photograph together. So she asked me how I, knew of her. I said, I watch all your videos. And it was like, we had a laugh, and it was, This is Princess Yasmin Aga Khan. This is actually Rita Hayworth's daughter. And we did her wedding, which was in her home on Central Park West. Leona Helmsley, very famous, all the Helmsley hotels. They were like really good. Her and her husband, Harry Helmsley, were really huge clients of ours. We did, birthday parties, events for them constantly. And my dad had a really, really good relationship with them. So she was a tough cookie to work with, but we worked it out. This is, her name is Rachel Yucatel. This was actually, she became famous for being Tiger Woods' girlfriend. And she was actually married before that thing, and we were the photographers for the wedding. And it was a gorgeous wedding. Very, she married, at that time, it didn't last too long, but she married a very wealthy guy from Wall Street guy. Going back a little in time, this was a shot in front of the World Trade Center many, many years ago. I'm going to say in the 70s, like probably late 70s, and they used to have all this architecture there and sculpture that you could use for photographs. This wedding was actually on the windows on the world on the top of the World Trade Center at that time. So all of these things bring us back. This was in the St. Samoritz Hotel, which is now the Ritz-Carlton. I think it's now the Ritz-Carlton. It's not the Samoritz anyway. So it's the Ritz-Carlton, I believe, and on Central Park South. But you can see the clothing and the beautiful views, and that's what we try to do still today when we go out. This was a shot I did. I was asked to take a photograph for Kodak. Remember Kodak, that company? We were asked to take for a campaign for Portra 800 film. So how to use 800 film, and it was a whole thing. I loved this shot. It was just just soft, pretty lighting, and which is kind of reminiscent of the work that we do now. Looking for the same thing. Studio shots. We do a lot of portraiture in our studio. That has grown tremendously. This was shot with Hasselblad 4D. And using lighting that I like to use in a studio, which is, this was actually before we started with ProPhoto, but we still use Dynalight flash, very lightweight flashes that we use now when we go on to weddings. So it's something that I still like to use because I love the quality of light I get from those flashes. And this is something my son Brian shot, a beautiful portrait of this little girl in their home. we try to make every wedding, every portrait, every event that we go to unique and bring out the best. So to do that, it's really about relationships with clients and making them want you and making them love the photographs they get and the service they get from your company. So this is, family stuff, just all very important, and it's very consistent. So when you're a photographer, you're doing weddings, the key word I use all the time is being consistent. If I have a photographer that's good one day and not so great the next weekend, or, this doesn't work for me. The consistency is the most important thing. You have to bring the job back every single time, and you have to be really consistent, not only consistent, but very careful that when you're photographing, you back up your files. I use an item called a Nexto DI. I think it's a B&H probably sells them. It's a little hard drive that I can just plug my card in, downloads. It downloads really fast. Epson used to have a downloader thing like that, but this thing's very fast, and it backs up your files, so you have your images immediately in two different places, just in case something, God forbid, happens. So those are all very important, things to keep yourself, you're not going to have a problem. You drop a card. I once heard a story of a named photographer who shall remain nameless here, but that had a 32 gig. Actually, yeah, I think it was like a 32 gig card. It was a few years ago in his pocket, and went to the bathroom. And when he went to flush the toilet, the card fell out of his pocket, and there went the wedding. 600 pictures. So this is like crazy stuff, and it wasn't backed up. And then you have to start calling people. It's embarrassing. It gets around. This can't happen. So you really, need to make sure that whoever works for you is very careful, very consistent, and does a really, cool job. This little kid. Love this kid. We photograph him every single year since he was a year old, and he's about 12 now. But this is one of my favorite photographs of him. And this kid could be, definitely an ad for, character. But this is the kind of stuff we like to provide our customers. Soft lighting, pictures that have character, that capture the emotion, and people look back on it. It's not just a snapshot. So it's getting images that are different than what your competitors are taking. So when you go out to photograph, you want to make sure that your images are just pristine, they're focused, and they're not blurry, grainy images that can't be blown up. They have to be really special. Lighting that we use when we go out. I work with, we have an interesting relationship here. I photograph with Canon. My son photographs with Nikon. We use pretty much a lot of the same lighting, so Dynalight or Profoto lights we're doing a lot with. I carry actually two cameras. I use the 1DX as my main camera. I use a 5D Mark III as my secondary camera. I switched over to Sigma lenses about a year ago, and I love the lenses because they're inexpensive, but they're just solid lenses. They're so much better made, and I love that. So they're amazing. You should take a look at them. Instead of spending thousands of dollars, you can buy 2-3 lenses for the same amount of money and get really cool images. Reflectors, mostly like Westcott. We like to use 5-in-1, reflectors that I think are good. And the most important thing is, obviously the memory that you use, and that's why Lexar has us here. But truthfully, Lexar memory is really, really, really reliable. I have never had a bad card in all the years I've been doing this and using their cards. And the speed of the card is very important. So today's cameras, you're shooting very fast, and if it's a special moment and you're shooting at a high rate of frames per second, you want to be able to have that recorded quickly so you can move on to the next thing. Years ago, everything was very slow. You had to wait. You always wait for that red light to go off. Now it's like instantaneous. It's really, really nice. And then I keep a third camera on me. I use a Fuji X-T1 camera as just a extra backup. And it's fun, like when I shoot candid photographs, to go around with that because it's a lot lighter weight. It's a mirrorless camera, a lot lighter weight, and able to, work with it without carrying all this, weight for 10 hours around. So portraits, again, getting expressions from people, key to your success. So instead of just knowing your equipment and being able to, stand in front of a subject and the equipment is all secondary. I love to do we're doing a lot of pregnancy portraits, newborn portraits now, and bringing that all into the fold. So, the business has been doing, consistently well, and we've been extremely busy. We do, as a studio, last year we did about 240 weddings, and they were all extremely high-end weddings. So every weekend, we're probably averaging about, 5-6 weddings, over a week. We have a wedding tonight, so it's like, it's crazy. This is what we're known for, and this is why people come to us, because of the way in which we work and the consistency of what we do. So people have bad experiences with photographers. Some people don't hire us the first time, and then they have a bad experience, and they always come back the second time saying, I should have. And another thing I've been doing a lot of is that one thing that we don't do is I don't know if I'm repeating what you were going to say, but it was basically, we don't give away our files. We only sell albums. People order albums, and a big thing, part of our success is the after sale. So by doing a great job at a wedding, by taking amazing photographs, you almost compel people to buy more pictures. So our after sale is terrific. The photographers that go out and charge a fee to photograph a wedding, and then give the client a disc, is, it blows my mind, because they're giving away money. I think people come to us for the service we give. We sit with them, we review their images. I'm really good at selling additional photographs to clients, so is Brian, and our orders are pretty much really extremely high. People come in and spend thousands of dollars more than the initial basic arrangement. Our albums, many of which are 2 and 3 volumes, have tell a really wonderful story. So that's the way in which we work, and I will let Brian go on and give a little bit of a description of the actual photography, and a little bit more on the process of shooting the weddings. So here you go.
How is everybody doing? You can all wake up now. Just kidding. Just kidding. So I'm Brian Marcus. How are you? I'm the 3rd generation of Fred Marcus Studio. I've been working in the office now, or in the studio with the studio professionally, for about 13 years. But like my dad, was an assistant as well, growing up in high school, et cetera. So one thing that we sort of left out a little bit was the structure of our studio. We have 4 or 5 photographers that work for us, as well as the 2 of us, and then we have an amazing video team that we've really put a lot of money and effort into finding the right people who are doing this more photojournalistic, sort of more dramatic style of video. We've been doing video for about 25, 30 years, I think. And now we're sort of entering into this zone of really doing some amazing products with videos. Basically, from 1941, which is a lot to live up to 2006, when I started basically working in the studio, the one thing that I really always realized about my dad and my grandfather, who I was lucky enough to sort of work alongside and learn from, is that they never were really too quick to change what worked, right? And so they always sort of focused on what made the customer happy. And instead of jumping around and doing, 40 different things, they started off really perfecting 1, 2, or 3 things. And they laid down a concrete foundation for me, which I was lucky enough, I moved to LA after college and really got my bearings, and then realized when my sort of future was going to be in photography that obviously it would probably be a good idea to come home and evolve our business. But laying down that concrete foundation allowed me to sort of come in and say, okay, how can I take this and build upon this and evolve this into something even bigger? And so what I'm going to show you in the next 45 minutes is sort of how I think this business is sort of moving, and we're constantly changing and adapting to that change for all of us, whether you're in portraiture, weddings, or any type of photography, especially now, is very, very stressful. In the social media driven world, it's really tough to sort of focus, no pun intended, on what is really important to your business. And my one bit of advice would be to really focus on the things that you're the best at, perfect those, really excite people over those things, and then start to add on certain value items little by little, depending on what it is you do. So from 2006 to 2016, all of us have seen an amazing amount of change in the photography landscape. When I started, and it was only 10, 12 years ago, this was the scene, and now we're all too familiar with this scene. And it really is amazing in a decade how quickly things have changed. So when I started shooting, I was obviously shooting film, and this was, again, only 10 years ago. This was the type of equipment we were using, and now we're using unbelievably technologically advanced, storage-capable cards. I still miss this camera all the time. I try to use it every now and then, but it never seems to happen anymore. But I do love the Hasselblad. This is what I was taught on as a medium format camera. And now I have a camera that I can't even get through the instruction manual. So I just got the new Nikon D5, which is just so unbelievable. I can't even really begin to talk about it. For video, this is what we were all used to, and now we're used to this. And back in the day, this was what got us aerial photography, and now this is what gets us aerial photography. So I think it applies to all of us that this is literally this new world, this planet that we live in now, this social media-driven landscape is sort of making us like this. And getting past this stage, again, you got to revert back to really what makes you, and find that little unique little bit of value that you can attach to everything that you do. And once you kind of get people to listen and get people to start hiring you and invest in you, sort of build upon that. So that would be my bit of advice sort of from my experience. And another thing is I did a search for New York wedding photographers. And when I started 13 years ago, I literally sat in a room and really challenged 3 other companies that we were familiar with to sort of beat me out. And I was really, I'm like, what other photographers have you seen? And they named 2 or 3 different studios. And now we're dealing with legitimately tens of thousands of photographers, which lead me to all these crazy blogs and searches of your 20 best New York photographers and your 100 best New York photographers. And I don't think my dad and I have been on a top 10 list. And I would say my dad obviously should definitely be on there before me. But the fact that clients and the public is exposed to this type of advertising that really isn't all that true, or doesn't have that much merit, in my opinion, really makes our lives very difficult. And that's not such a horrible thing because it makes us work harder, but it really teaches you that you have to focus on what is going to make you stand out from the 2.2 million photographers that you can search for on Google. The next thing I did was search for affordable, cheap photographers in New York, and I think we pulled down 370,000 options of inexpensive and cheap photographers, and this is also what I'm dealing with. And then we have on top the really cheap. So it went from Google search to really cheap. So now we're not just cheap, we're really cheap and super cheap and et cetera. So we try to, believe it or not, being expensive, and like my dad said, the expensive to ridiculous comment, which he's used a few times, it's true, but in fact, it actually separates us from the 2.2 million photographers who are all trying to cheapen themselves by offering something that has less of a standard and less quality, and basically giving it away. So I like this quote a lot. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. And I think that everything I just showed you and everything you guys already know, every single day is an opportunity to keep up with the change, but also really solidify the past and what you're really, really good at. And so, we base our studio on our relationships. And I would tell you that my dad and I are more therapists and personalities than we are good photographers. Some might disagree with that, but I think that's true. And what I will tell you is that I believe that 50% of the people that come in and book me for a wedding specifically, or anybody from my staff, are coming in because of who we are and how we are the day of the event. So bypass the photographs, bypass the quality of the albums for a second. This has become a very, serious decision for brides and grooms and families, and they want people that they can trust, but also that they have fun with, right? They want people that when they meet them on first go, that they're like, I'd really like to spend the day with this guy. And not only are we responsible for bringing back their memories for the rest of their lives, but we are. Why I love my job so much, and I really do. I don't love it when I wake up in the morning, but I love it the minute that I step into that wedding, that getting ready room, and that's honest. He loves it when he wakes up in the morning. I don't like missing my football games and golf when all my friends are going out. But the minute I walk into that room, I have I'm doing a service for these people, but also I really look at it like this, that every single, and everybody should look at their jobs like this if they love what they do, hopefully, is that when I walk into that room and I see 20 people, from the grandmother down to the niece that's 6 years old running around like a lunatic, I really do care that I get to know every one of them. And I know that sounds crazy, but that is why people like what I do. So from the second that I walk in to the second that I leave, they comment on me. They talk to me. They know my name at the end of the day. The bridesmaids who I never met before, who are my 10, 12 potential clients in the future, all know exactly who I am by the end of the day. And that's what makes what I do or the way I do it really, really great. So besides the obvious stuff and sort of the luck of the draw of me kind of starting to work for a great studio like ours, I try to now add more value. And what's cool about the technology is that you can really find things out there to make your business a little bit of extra money by not really investing that much time and actually investing in money. So, for instance, this drone. Okay, I have no clue about drones until about 2 years ago, and I said, what, I'm gonna buy a drone and I'm gonna sell it to one client. And even if I don't sell it to one client, I'm gonna actually put it up there in the sky, and I'm gonna film just the aerial of the country club that the wedding is at, right? I'm gonna go up, and I've never done it before, okay? I read the instruction manual, I put it up in the sky, and I took one image of the country club from afar. When we added it to the video for free, I didn't charge for my service, I just put it up there and literally filmed for 2 minutes. The value that it added to that video, so the short film that I showed you before, if I had an aerial shot just to begin that video, to the client's eyes, it automatically becomes more expensive. And so to put in $1,500 for a drone, which is actually not crazy, and know that you could charge, even if it's $300 or $500 or $1,000 extra, just to bring it for a few minutes to make that video look better, it became a trend. So what happened was I used it once for a client for free, then I used it for $500, then I started charging $1,000, then I started charging $1,500, and now when they come in and watch these sample videos, they can't say no to that addition because it looks so good. So within 3 or 4 jobs, you make your money back, and now it's all profit, and you can do it by yourself. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, I really did not take a class on it. I have not crashed it other than once, but I was going to show you that, but it got scratched. Long story. So I just did a birthday party in like my dad said, I've been traveling a lot. I've been lucky enough to be invited to these amazing parties. And these are just some clips. This is from a birthday party in Greece. It was actually a 30th birthday and a 60th birthday. So the father had the birthday and the son had the birthday. Obviously, very, very successful real estate people from New York. They literally rented out this entire hotel in Greece, which is the Amman Hotel. And I was literally in my underwear, okay, filming these shots. And that's how amazing these things are. You see this stuff on your phone, it connects right away. And this was the dinner table by the beach club down at the hotel. And just by adding these shots to this video at the end, I was able not only to sell them an album of my still photography, but what I did was I brought a drone and I bought a little, honestly, like a handheld video camera. It was not a DSLR. And I started filming people speaking to the birthday boys, and I asked funny questions. I ended up shooting a music video with them, just had a ton of fun as if you were in college with a video camera. And I added the drone footage, and then I added the stills, and they probably, I mean, without, saying, I mean, I haven't said their name, but they probably spent about $8,500 extra on the additional video, which probably should have charged double, but the quality of it, I can't tell you how many people have seen that video. They posted it online. They had a viewing party in their apartment. And this is the way that if you do the right thing for one client and you find ways to teach them or to look at things a little differently and show them your craft and your talent, you can really sell this stuff for a lot of money. This is the drone. I mean, again, $1,500 to produce these types of images. It's like they hired a film crew for $50,000 to come down to the party. So I just had a lot of fun with this stuff. This is me flying this down to them dancing on a dance floor. And after about a day or two, I got a hang of this. I did not kill anybody with it. But I mean, we're talking like, 1,500, 2,000 feet into the sky. I flew it into the fireworks they have. So this was a party I was at 2 weeks ago, another birthday party on this boat that they chartered. And, I'm there. I can't even believe that I'm invited to these things. But, if I'm invited to these things, why not go out of your way and it was just me. I didn't have an assistant, just me, my still camera, my video camera, and my drone. And I threw it up in the air, probably a total of about an hour throughout the entire event. And the event was 7 days. But when I edit this footage all together, we're going to make something that instead of it looking like it was $5,000, it's going to look like it's $50,000. And they'll show it to 120 of their friends. And my point is just adding a little bit of value, finding these little tools out there that can really help your business is sort of a nice little tip that I think everybody should sort of concentrate. It doesn't have to be a drone. It could be a lens. But you got to find something that differentiates what you do, include it for a couple of clients, right? Give it to them for free. I really want you guys to see what I can do with this. And get it as a sample or for your portfolio, and then start selling it slowly, and then continue to raise your prices. So instead of bait and hook, I called it bait and book. So I'm going to give you some tips quickly. I'm kind of running out of time here, but so is trust more important than the actual photography or video? I would say it's a 50-50 deal, but nobody is spending money on you unless they absolutely trust you. So after meeting with them or during the first initial booking or meeting, if they do not trust you, there is a 0% chance that they're actually going to book you for a party. So in terms of trust, they want to know, obviously, that you take beautiful photos, that you take beautiful video, but they want to look in your eyes and really kind of feel that they can trust the fact that you're going to handle 200 people on the most important day of their wedding, be awesome to deal with, and also be organized and totally with it and smart the way that you handle yourself. And I think that's why, again, I book a lot of parties, or at least half the parties is because of those reasons. So I ask a ton of questions. If you act interested in your client, they will for sure be interested in you. So before we sit down and start talking about the actual wedding, I really try to find out quickly where they're from, how they met, a little bit of a piece of them to take with me afterwards, so that when I write my follow-up emails or talk to them, I feel like I know, who they are, where they're from, what college they went to. There could be somebody that we know in common, those types of things. An engagement shoot is something that anybody do engagement shoots? The wedding, a lot of people ask about this stuff. So I find this to be one of the most annoying things that goes on these days because it's just a lot of work, and we actually include it in our package. But I will tell you that doing an hour engagement shoot or a 2-hour engagement shoot does two things. One, it raises your bottom line because you can actually sell more pictures. Two, it gets you comfortable with the client and the client comfortable with you. But three, for me, as you know, that's a given at this point in my career. I pretty much connect with everybody, and that's why I do what I do. But what's great is that you learn about your client and what they're insecure about, right? So like you know how if somebody has a big nose, if somebody's a little heavier, if somebody looks bad, they're gonna talk to you and communicate those things within 5 minutes of your engagement shoot. So the day of the wedding, you know exactly how to treat them and what they're sensitive about. And I think it's definitely recommended to do at least a small shoot for anybody before you do their wedding. So obviously, my dad talked a little bit about this, the value of what they're buying. We are really responsible for the memories that will last their lifetime. It sounds cheesy. It is true. I am lucky to be in the position, we are lucky to be in the position to tell people that, without us, they cannot relive the biggest day of their life. They invest thousands of dollars into an event. Why would you skimp on really the only part of it that you get a return on your investment with? And that's what I really sell. I sell the fact that flowers and cakes and venues and bands cost a fortune. And if you're looking to save money, you probably would want to save money with those people because they are not going to talk to you the day after your wedding, where we probably will have a relationship for the next, hopefully, 30 years, and you're going to have something tangible to actually relive and to purchase. And people, I think, really understand that idea. And so, when clients walk in and they're like, oh my God, we look alike, and I love that dress, and oh my God, their hair, that's going to be like my hair during the wedding. So that's not BS. What I do is, if I have a brunette walk into my office, I don't show her the hot blonde book, if that makes sense, right? So if I have a brunette, I'm going to show her brunettes. If I have a blonde, I'm going to show her pictures of blondes. If I have a couple getting married in the Hamptons, and I'm showing them pictures from the winter, it doesn't make any sense. So this funny line, or I thought it was funny, that I put in here, is more to say when you have clients walking in, know a little bit about where they're from, what kind of wedding it is, make the albums and pictures and portfolios that you send seasonal. So if somebody's getting married in the summer and they look at your photos, that they really feel like you're their photographer already, right? They could just put themselves in that place. And so it does actually really, really work. So this is something that I learned a while back, to look at a wedding sort of mathematically and break it down into different sections. Okay, so you have your getting ready, your portraits, your ceremony, your decor, and your party section of the wedding. That formula sort of doesn't change. It can change in sequence, but it will never change. And so what you have to look at from a business perspective is when you go into these weddings, there's a percentage of those sections that ends up in a client's album and in a client's home. No matter how many pictures you take during the getting ready section of the wedding, you know that in the end, they are not making an album out of the getting ready photos, right? So what does that mean? That means that as the years go by, what I've done is sort of really pay attention to the certain pictures that sell all the time. Does that make sense? So I don't walk into a hotel room and say, I'm not going to take creative pictures today. Obviously, we take candids and get really beautiful, unique photos. But every single time I walk into a room where the bridesmaids and the groomsmen are getting ready, there are 10 standard shots that I always get, right? I always get them. And that's another tip, is that it's sort of relatable to what I said about concentrating on one thing. Get down these really, really standard, beautiful shots and get really good at those, and then start to play. Because now the shots that I know will sell, I get within 15 minutes of being in that room. And it's not calculated. It doesn't feel structured. It doesn't feel mathematic. It feels natural. But it also looks like you're super organized. And people get real confident when you walk into their room for a wedding, and they see that you're on it. Where are the rings? Where are the shoes? Where's the dress? Girls get like, let's do a shot of all the bridesmaids. Let's do a shot of all the groomsmen. And then you can start playing around with things. Does that make sense? So this is some of the more creative stuff. I use a tool for my flash called a MagMod. Anybody familiar with that company? MagMod? Should write it down. I don't get a commission for selling their products. It's an inexpensive way to really control your flash units. You can actually pop grids on magnetically. It's called MagMod. It's awesome. So that's this. This is actually a grid on a small flash, giving me a pinpoint sort of spotlight on the groom, and it allows you to really play around and create some real dramatic photos. And obviously, I'm setting up most of these shots, but once the shot is set up, it's your job to capture the emotion and the candidness. So when the father came in to see her for the first time, I set my angle. Once my angle is set, I sort of call, action, and then that's when you get your real candid photos. Pose pictures don't always have to be looking into the camera. I really focus on portraits that are not only close up, but wide, sort of landscape portraits, factoring in the location. So the portraits. This is, if you pay attention to one thing, this would be it. I've learned from my family, my dad, my studio, that this is really the bread and butter of our business. This is where you really can make some real money. And I don't know what I came up with this. It's a recipe for money cake. So if you prepare, like we talked about, if you gather as much information as you possibly can before the wedding, if you make it personal during the wedding, if you concentrate on knowing people's names, instead of saying, oh, brother, come on over, cousins, guys, cousins. And that doesn't mean you need to memorize them necessarily, but having a good assistant, or at least having a piece of paper with a shot list, allows you to seemingly know what you're doing. So instead of saying brother, sister, you're saying Judy, Andy, Stephanie, Brian, and people like that. They're like, wow, this guy knows, even if you're reading it, this guy really knows my name. So making it personal, managing your time, right? So the reason why I think most wedding photographers sort of fail is because they're terrible managers of time. We have to do all of what we do in a 2-hour span. That's how much time we actually ask for. And a lot of people don't even think that's enough time, but we'd like to have somewhat of a life. So we usually work for about 8-9 hours in a given wedding, and that includes getting ready and portraits. The portraits are about a 2-hour session. So having a shot list, making it personal, managing the time is crucial, and only adds to the confidence of everybody around you. Learn your posing, okay? You don't have to be formal posing. I don't use a ladder anymore. I don't do, formal posed photos. The world has kind of gone away with that, but I do guide my clients to the promised land and make them look amazing, and that takes a little bit of education on posing and really knowing your lighting. And then obviously using great equipment, whether it be your cards, whether it be your bodies, your lenses, a drone, video cameras, etc. You got to invest in the right gear and be so confident with that stuff that it becomes second nature. My camera's on the floor half the time, legitimately. I mean, Juan is here, who was with me at the LeBron wedding and has worked for us for a number of years. He will tell you that when he works with me, it's a bit frustrating because I'm a little crazy when I work and very excited and into it, but my camera is sort of the least important thing to me. I've sent it to the shop maybe 3 times already this year, but I really just concentrate on keeping that energy between me and the client alive, and that doesn't exist when you have a camera in front of your face. It exists when you're talking and touching and moving, and it's okay to pose, but you got to be confident with what you're doing and know what you're doing, and so all that stuff equals money cake and eventually some profit in your pocket. So this is what a typical set of photos looks like from one given wedding, which I'm a fan of showing as opposed to just showing you guys all my favorite pictures. It's nice to see, like my dad said, the consistency in the work, the quality in the work, and that's what people see. So energy is crucial. Keeping people moving for me is crucial. Using different kinds of lighting. I invented with a partner, John Solano from Los Angeles, the GL1 hot light. Go to our website. Check it out. It's called the GL1 hot light. It's made by Lowell. It has become an invaluable tool for me in low lighting. It is my sole light source. It gives you this type of Hollywood lighting in a fraction of seconds. So this picture, all the same bride are shot literally in a matter of, let's say, a minute or two based on that lighting. I'm not futzing with flashes or strobes or taking meter readings, really. This stuff has to be done quickly, and I like utilizing different areas of locations, and that's how I get all these different kinds of photos during a wedding. In a 2-3 hour span, is because I consistently am moving and consistently using different lenses and consistently using different lighting. So this is the same day. This is obviously available light. This is with a flash, and I hardly ever use flash sort of outdoors. It's got a little bit too much of a commercial look, but there's always a reason for it. And the reason why I used it here is because the lighting was really crappy on them and the light overpowered it. Back to available light. Getting the couple, and this was all within, all these pictures that I showed you guys, like outside here, is in like a 25-minute period. They didn't see each other before the wedding. So this is all just moving and shaking around a 2-3 block radius outside the Pierre. Like my dad said, we've done some stuff for Trump. I did Ivanka's wedding, and this was actually the first photo of the day taken in her bathroom. There was this beautiful door behind me, and it gave her that really beautiful spark in her eye. Wanted to get her comfortable, and that hair light that you see is actually my assistant holding that GL1 hot light. And this was the first photo that actually ended up being on a cover of Professional Photographer magazine, et cetera. It was really like the first photo that I took of the day. But with these types of clients, and with any client, they just want to see that you can give them an amazing variation of photos in a very short amount of time, where they know that they're not sitting there taking pictures for 7 hours. I mean, I have people come in who have seen other photographers, and they're like, giving them 14-hour contracts. And when I say 8 hours, they look at me like I'm crazy. And then they look at what we do, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you really do this in 8-9 hours? I'm like, well, why would you ever want to be taking pictures before the biggest day of your life? You're going to be exhausted taking pictures for 6 hours before the ceremony. It's silly. So people like the fact that they can really count on you to get this stuff done, to make them look great, and that to trust your not only your work, but your demeanor and the way that you do things, your approach, as I tend to talk about a lot. Posing photos to me is super important to know how to do this, guys. Like anybody leaving here that continues to do formal prom photos where they line everybody up in a row, I highly recommend that you change the way that you do things, because that's what pretty much everybody does that doesn't know what they're doing. So if you have a group of 12 for a family, get a few chairs, keep on. I continue to practice at every single wedding, try to improve my portraiture and my posing. I really do. Every single event that I do, I'm continuing to learn and get better and put people in the right positions and seeing how I can really kind of use them as puzzle pieces. And I've learned recently about tall people that when they put their hands, on somebody's back, and you say put their arms around somebody, what happens is their suit pops up. Right? So like, watch my suit. So if I put my arm around somebody, their suit pops up. If I unbutton the jacket, it still pops up. Well, what's the solution to that is just put your hands low on their lower back. So instead of putting it around them, what's up, and getting their tucks all ruined, you just kind of take their hands and put it around them and put it on their lower back. And now look at my suit. It doesn't move. So I know that's sort of anal and weird, but when you're in this business for 13 years, you really try to look at all the small things that differentiate what you do to what everybody else does. And I try not to be, I really try to be careful with that stuff and not be too particular. I really don't like to lose the moment. But again, when my camera's on the floor and I'm going and doing these pictures, I'm actually positioning them, their hands, their feet, without being too obtrusive, because I do it quite quickly. So these are just some beautiful pictures from the wedding. This was, I'll go through these a little bit quicker. This is from a wedding a few years ago, but I just wanted to show you guys, when you have two photographers, you can really double your money, but you're not going to double your money if the second photographer is shooting the same thing. So before you approach a wedding, you got to give a little strategy to the second shooter. One, they got to be good. But two, you want them using different lenses. You want them shooting different angles. So this is the same bride and groom, but different photographers from different angles, and they buy both photos because you're doing two different things. So when somebody comes in and says, oh my God, I want a photojournalist, well, you say, well, don't you want some really beautiful family pictures as well? And they're like, yeah, of course we want that as well. And so when they see the two things combined, not only do they pay for the additional photographer, but in the end, they buy more photos when you combine the two. So again, this is just the type of posing that we're known for, and it separates us from our competition. Everyone looks great. The hands are, you could see where everyone's hands are, their positioning, how they were seated. They're all just built around the bride, as opposed to just lining people up. 3 generations, doing it in different ways, using fast lenses, focusing on each different family member, telling a story with the camera and with the lens. These are all very thoughtful things that people do appreciate. And then just having fun with your clients, making sure the lighting is beautiful, getting them moving. If you guys remember, one tip is just constantly keep these people having fun and moving. Get those standard pretty shots right away, right? Get your 3 or 4 or 5 shots that you need for the parents, and then constantly keep them moving and engaged. Posed photos. I don't do lineups. These are family photos that sell every single time. That's why I started with the 40% of the profit of an album, or 40% of an album is portraits. And you see how I pose these, and these are unretouched, these aren't finished, but I really wanted to just be raw with you guys and show you what we actually do. Look at the expressions on the kids. I mean, I won't do what I was doing because I look sort of silly, but I'm engaged with everybody in this photo. Look at their faces, look at their expressions. They look comfortable, they look happy. And although it's not like my most favorite picture ever, they will purchase this. Every family member will purchase this, and this will be a photo that lives on sort of in their family for the rest of their lives, and that to me is pretty cool. Again, using color, black and white, 2 different photographers, even with couple photographs, making sure that you get 1 or 2 money shots for them. This was in Italy. I turned around and there was this magnificent rainbow that is not photoshopped, as they say, hashtag no filter. This is done straight from the camera, as is this. This is that GL1 hot light that we came up with. So you see, when you have this tungsten quality light, that GL1 marries that light that you see pretty much in every hotel. Same here, all GL1 hot light. This is just pressing a button, turning it on, going to 3200 ISO, or even now with my camera, 10,000 ISO, and you're getting these shots in with that kind of light, that powerful light at 5.6 f8. You're not at 1.4 anymore, 1.8 anymore with the solid light. The ceremony is also obviously a big part of the wedding. This was that same wedding that I showed you the video in. Obviously, I wanted to show you guys the consistency of the work and just how I tell a story with my images. I don't always go for the safe shot. I asked my assistant or associate to shoot with flash for this wedding because the church was so big, so beautiful and so big, and I shot with available light with my new camera, and you see that light on them is from the GL1 hot light. So my assistant is sort of like 7 rows down, giving them a little bit of a spotlight right on their face, and I grabbed that shot, which to me is a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more intimate than a flashed-in photo of her walking down. But again, I would not do that if I did not have a backup. Those are the kinds of pictures that you can't miss. Room shots, giving somebody, perspective and ambiance and environment that they can understand where the story took place. And then always keeping your eyes open. Again, this is all the same wedding. So keeping your eyes open for these little moments that happen almost at every wedding. Catching action, reaction, and then not being afraid, being confident to step up and start screaming at 200 people in a fun way and saying, guys, get together, everybody get together. And this is an image that most photographers don't have the to get, because they just feel like they're being annoying, when in turn, if you do it the right way, people remember you for it, right? So this is an opportunity for 200 people to look back at one person who's directing the show and be like, wow, that guy's awesome. That guy really stepped it up and took an amazing photo. That's going to be such a great photo, and they remember you because of those things. So definitely be confident in what you do. This is just some of that Trump wedding, some of the ceremony. It was just so beautiful. We actually have clients who is the groom's side, and everything about the wedding was just like really, really special. The decor. I'm gonna kind of breeze through this because you guys know a little bit about this. My one tip with this is always use a tripod for this stuff. Depending on the amount of time you have, use a low ISO of 100 to 400. Now, I mean, with these cameras, you kind of go to 1,000, and it could be fine. It all matters depends on how much time you have. I use my GL1 to paint in the lights for detail. And again, this is pretty much all one wedding. The one thing I will tell you is that with these photographs, what's really beneficial in really not bypassing this and saying, oh, whatever, these aren't that important, is that these are also ways to get more jobs. So the flowers, the florists, the hotels, the party planners, they don't care about the family photos. They care about these photos. So a wedding photographer wears a lot of hats. And one of those hats is sort of being an architectural photographer, a florist, a floral photographer, a clothing photographer. These are all things that the invitation lady that made the invitation, the menus, if you concentrate on getting better pictures of this stuff than your competition, trust me, when they see your watermark on it, it gets you more business and it gets you out there. And I think my father and I know my grandfather did this a lot, is, it's sort of as important as, just being a good photographer, maybe even more important, is to really go around to the different hotels and really discover new relationships with as many people as possible. The only way they're going to appreciate what you do and sell your work is if you give them some of your time and some of your talent. So, I've connected with a tremendous amount of vendors in our space and in our industry, and I think that's why we get a lot of events. This is a cool shot from a helicopter of the Trump affair. This was a cake that was like bigger than any cake I've ever seen. Some of the room, and now we get to the party. So my formula for the party is always enjoy yourself, okay? My grandfather and my dad, but I think my grandfather really taught everybody to not have your hands. I think, Howard, you told me this, to not have your hands in your pockets, ever, right? Never, because it looks like you have nothing to do. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is to always smile. Like if we're not happy doing what we're doing, and don't look happy doing what we're doing, there's nobody that's coming over that's saying, I like that guy. That guy's having a good time. So I enjoy myself. I dance with my camera. I'm as much a part of the party as I should be. I think that's a really good way of saying it. Some are more reserved, the parties, and some are more fun. Sometimes I know 30 people at the party, and that's always awesome. But involving yourself and not being shy is going to separate you from the majority of the people that have that camera in front of their face. And you need people, not want people, you need people to remember you if you're going to be successful in this, and maybe in any industry, but in this industry in particular, you need people to remember you. So my line here, be annoying one time. So what that means is I find the right moment pretty much most of the time to be annoying. And what that means is I go over to the parents and I go over to the couple, and I'm sort of like the wedding photographer, and I say, guys, this is a really good time to sort of walk around and get those pictures that we're not going to get for the rest of the night. So when they sit down, to eat the first course or the second course and everyone's seated, I go over to the parents and I say, listen, let's walk around for like 5 minutes and just I'll follow you and I'll pull your friends out. Don't worry about it. But I'll photograph all of you guys with all your best friends. And what happens is not only do they appreciate that, but in the end, those are the only photos that they buy and put into their album. And so it's always really valuable to be annoying one time. Changing your light source. My tip is to not keep things, just flash on camera all the time. Obviously, be safe and get the shots that you need, but be constantly changing the tools that you use for the right moment. I'm not here to sell my light. I use my light maybe 40%, 40% of the time during a wedding. And for the rest of the time, I either use Profoto strobes or my Nikon SB 910. So those are the three light sources that I use all the time, but I really do use them all the time. I never just stick to one because I like the images. I think every image and every feeling that you want to get out of those pictures deserves the right light source. Obviously, if you need help, hire a great photographer to be a second shooter. We have plenty of those, and it's been truly valuable or invaluable for us. And then follow instructions. So, before the wedding, like I said when I started, get as much information as you possibly can so that the day of the wedding there are 0 questions. So, if the bride's best friends are at table 13, I want to know about it. If the father had guests in from Israel, I want to know about it. All those things are super important. So this is, like I told you, I always bring the bride and groom into the room for like 2 minutes before. But like anybody who shoots weddings in here, they know that the bride and groom, they're when they come into that room, what do? They're like, okay, all our friends are waiting outside. It's cocktail hour. Like, let's go. And so the GL1 light is legitimately the best solution for that because you click on the button, you turn it on, and this is the picture you get. Okay, see ya, go back. So it's like a 30-second thing as opposed to using lots of flashes or strobes, which is a little bit more tedious and time-consuming. Back to flash, just great dancing shots. Back to hot light, to flash. Again, constantly using different light sources. Speeches, great reactions, always looking for the reaction from the action. So here's my action, here's my reaction. My tip with speeches, I try to get my guys to listen to me all the time with this, is that if you're not listening to the person speaking, you're doing them a disservice, okay? So when the best man gets up there and starts speaking about the brother, okay, you know where the brother is seated, and you know that he is going to evoke a reaction from that person. When the father is speaking and you hear him getting sentimental, and it's a good speech, hopefully, and everybody starts to sap up, you know to be focused on the bride and groom. I've already got the picture of them speaking. This is easy. This comes within 30 seconds. But this is really what you want. The party is super important to capture both candids and make sure that you get the shots that you know your customers want. So that's really the sort of the gist of how I break down my shoots. And this is sort of a fun slide where obviously thank you to Howard and Lexar for having us here. But it's like filling up your Porsche with regular gasoline, when you use these other cards. And so, Lexar for me and for my dad, for our studio, is really the fuel to these images that never lets us down. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but it's true. They're an amazing company. They have amazing support. The quality of their products keep getting better, and they keep on innovating and doing new things. And I really am proud to be a partner with you guys and humbled that you had us here. Real quick, I wanted to share some of our gear that we have, all purchased at B&H, obviously. The lenses that I use most often are the 24 to 70, 70 to 200. I just got the D5, which is really an amazing piece of machinery, a 50 millimeter lens, and a 14 to 24. Those are sort of like the basic lenses. I carry about 3 or 4 more, but these are the ones that I would say if somebody was going to build a kit, I would say that these are what you need. The Profoto B1s are unbelievable. That's in the bottom left. Those are super mobile. You can take them anywhere. They come in a padded backpack, which is like unheard of. And if you're looking for strobe lights, in my opinion, no matter what they cost, those are the ones to get because you really are not bogged down with heavy equipment when you have those. This is my GL1 hot light. I recommend everybody taking a peek at. Always have a reflector on me for available light and a strobe light. I try to make it super simple, the equipment that I use. This is some of my dad's equipment. The bottom left is that next DI, I think it's pronounced. It's a card reader that saves all of your cards after an important job. Dynalite equipment, Profoto, Lumidyne, the Magmod gels and magnet system, all the Sigma lenses, the Canon 1D. And I leave you with the question here. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation, but when you leave, and I continue to ask myself this honestly, like every day, is what separates you from your competition and from everybody else? And so that is a question that if you can answer, call me.
Just both of us want to thank B&H Photo for bringing us here, as well as Lexar for sponsoring us to do this, and thank you all for coming out and listening. I hope you got something out of this.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.